Hey guys, hope your Diwali went well. This is Samachar Manthan 22nd lecture. Let's begin. The first topic is Cabinet nod for opening up of Solar Alliance to all UN countries. Now, Solar Alliance is an important topic from the point of view of prelims, and it is important for mains from the point of view of renewable energy, especially solar energy. So, in prelims, as we can see, International Solar Alliance questions can be asked regarding this. And in mains, India's renewable energy commitments and efforts in that direction. So, this topic will be a small addition in this theme. Then, coming to the context, as the heading suggests, the Union Cabinet has given its approval for a resolution which will be placed in the first assembly of the ISA, and this resolution is regarding allowing all the UN countries to become the members of ISA. Amongst these 4 points, only point 3 is important. The rest are optional. If you want to read, go through them. Otherwise, you can skip. Point 3 says that the benefit of opening the membership of the ISA to all UN countries is that it will put solar energy on global agenda, and this will universalize the appeal for solar energy. That is it will increase the cooperation and support for deploying and developing solar energy. So that is basically the objective of expanding the membership of ISA. Then coming to back to basics, this is basically prelims related stuff. So International Solar Alliance is an alliance of more than 121 countries. Now this statement hides more than it reveals. 121 countries are prospective members. They are not members per se. That is, becoming a member of ISA requires signing and ratification of the treaty. So 121 are prospective members. Out of these, I have checked the International Solar Alliance website. 70 have signed the treaty, and out of these 70, 47 have ratified. So we can say that 121 are prospective, out of which 70 have signed and 47 have ratified. So depending on what the question is asking, you need to make your judgment according to that. The other important thing is that while China is amongst the prospective countries, Pakistan is neither in the prospective country list nor, of course, have signed or ratified. So Pakistan is totally out of the purview of ISA as of now. Once the membership is open to all UN members, then of course Pakistan will become eligible. But as of now, Pakistan is out of its purview, and China is on the radar of 121 prospective countries, but it has not yet signed or ratified the treaty. Then we have the term sunshine countries. Now, these sunshine countries are those which are between the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. Tropic of Cancer is 23.5 degrees north latitude, and Tropic of Capricorn is 23.5 degree south latitude from the equator, of course. And this zone is together known as torrid zone. In your geography, you must have read of this: torrid, temperate, and frigid zones. So this is torrid zone. Now these countries need not lie completely in the torrid zone. Say for example, India, the 23.5 degree north latitude, that is the Tropic of Cancer, it passes roughly halfway through India. So these countries are not necessarily in the torrid zone, but they can lie either, even if they are not completely in the torrid zone. That is, say France is at a very high latitude, but still it is a member of International Solar Alliance. The broad objective is that sunshine countries are the best targeted because they have solar energy, that is sun, available for approximately 300 days in a year. So these are the target countries, but then anybody can become a member, especially so after the UN membership is open. Next, we can talk about the primary objective of ISA, which is to work for efficient exploitation of solar energy to reduce dependence on fossil fuels. So it has got greenhouse CO2 emission, that angle as well. Next is the nature of this alliance. It is a treaty based intergovernmental organization. Now, this is very, very important. It is a highly formal organization, like something like UN. Like, you have to sign a treaty, proper treaty, and ratify it in your parliament to become a member. It is not that anybody can become a formal member of the ISA. Only governments can become formal members. Other partners can happen, like NGOs and other organizations which can help in developing solar energy. They can partner with the organization, but they can't become full-fledged members. Full-fledged members can only be governments. Next is the point that ISA is also known as IASPA. The full form is International Agency for Solar Policy and Application. So don't get confused if IASPA is asked in place of ISA. The next point is that it will be headquartered in India, and the headquarters will be in Gurgaon in Haryana. And the next is when it was launched. So formally it was launched during the COP Paris, the meeting, the conference of UNFCCC. This was held in November 2015 in Paris, and it was launched by both India and France at this during this conference. So this was the formal launch. But other summits like India Africa Summit and all these, they were preliminary proposals for the ISA. So when the question asks you when it was launched, the formal launching happened during the COP21 Paris conference in France. Now you have to be careful with the language of the option. If it is asking about where it was founded, so it was founded in Paris in France, but it is headquartered in India. So you need to be clear with this. The next topic is India conducts successful night trial of nuclear capable Agni-1 missile. This topic is important mainly for prelims. So the first point is about its indigenous nature. That is, this missile has been indigenously developed by DRDO. We'll see it later also. The second point is that it is a surface to surface missile. So this is another characteristic, can be asked in prelims. The third is something known as Abdul Kalam Island, which is off the Odisha coast. So open your atlas and locate this island, can be asked in prelims. Then the strike range is approximately 700 kilometers. Next, we have a few points which can be asked in exam. The first point is that it is a short range ballistic missile. It is not a cruise missile. Then it has been developed in-house by DRDO under the Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. So the name of the project also can be asked. So it is Integrated Guided Missile Development Program, acronymed IGMDP. The next point is that it is a single stage missile powered by solid propellants. So the nature of the missile in terms of how many stages it has and the kind of propellant it uses can be asked. Then it has already been inducted into the Indian Army. This is also important because the status of induction of the missile can be asked. That is, whether it is under testing phase or it has been formally inducted. So it has been inducted into the Indian Army. Now the force also can be asked, whether it is Air Force related or Navy related or Army related. So this missile is related to the Indian Army. The next topic is nature pushed to the brink by runaway consumption. This topic is important for both prelims and for mains. In prelims, questions can be asked regarding the report and the organization, the findings of the report as well. In mains, the information presented here can be used in questions related to the broader theme of mass extinction and conservation of wildlife. So the first point is that World Wildlife Fund is the organization and the report is Living Planet Report. It has found that because of uncontrolled consumption, two problems have emerged. The first is that today we are experiencing the sixth mass extinction event, and secondly, the Earth's capacity to accommodate humanity's demands has been exhausted. So this basically means that because of unbridled consumption, consumerism, materialism, whatever you want to call it, because of that, we are experiencing the sixth mass extinction event today. So we are going to see it in the next slide, the geological time and the 5 other mass extinction events that also can be asked in exam. So today we are experiencing the sixth mass extinction, and this point, decimation of global wildlife, is just a reiteration of that. Decimated means almost finished, almost destroyed. The second point is that Earth's capacity to accommodate humanity's demands, humanity's needs, has been exhausted. This basically means that the Earth's regenerative capacity, like the demands, the pressures which our demands force on the Earth, if say we need billions of tons of wheat or of rice, Earth has got a limited regenerative capacity. So if we exceed that, the earth cannot provide for our increasing needs. So this the regenerative capacity has been exhausted. Our needs have surpassed the regenerative capacity of the earth. So very dire warning. Then the second point is not really anything which can be asked in prelims, but it is an excellent fact which can be used in your mains, in your essays. So from 2014, from 1970, I'm sorry, from 1970 till 2014, so a gap of 44 years, 60% of all animals with a backbone were wiped out in these 44 years. So these include fish, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. Next is other statistics. 80% of freshwater fauna has been lost in these 44 years, that is from 1970 till 2014. Then we have the point that Latin America is the region that has been hardest hit, and it has seen 90% loss of wildlife. Important stuff for both prelims and mains can be asked. Then the next point is about the sixth mass extinction event. We have already seen this. Before moving ahead, let's talk about the geological timetable, and it deals with the mass extinction events which have happened till date. The first column of the table is about eras. So, eras is the broadest division of time. We have Cenozoic, Mesozoic, Paleozoic, and earlier eras. Earth has formed about 4.5 billion years ago, and it cooled around 4 billion years ago. So 4 billion years is the beginning of the solidified Earth, and now will mean the present day, the present moment. So we begin from 4 billion years and we move upwards till the present day. Then the second column from eras is the from to column. This column reflects the years, the time period of particular eras. Next we have the events column. Events is about the important life forms which existed in a particular era. Then we have periods. Periods are a shorter duration of time compared to eras. So we can say that eras are divided into various periods. And finally, we have what it ended with, that is, what a particular period ended with. So, at present, we are in the Quaternary period, which is in the Cenozoic era, and we are talking about the sixth mass extinction. The Living Planet report of World Wildlife Fund is talking about this particular extinction. And we are in the Cenozoic era today, which is the age of mammals, dominated by mammals and birds, and it extends from the present day till 65 million years ago in terms of geological history. The Cenozoic era is formed of tertiary and quaternary periods, out of which tertiary is the older one and quaternary naturally is the younger one. Then we come to the Mesozoic era. This is the age of reptiles, and it extends from 65 million years till 250 million years. This period was dominated by reptiles first, then early mammals, and then dinosaurs. Reptiles were in the Triassic period, early mammals were in the Jurassic, and dinosaurs were in the Cretaceous. In terms of extinction, we have an extinction during the Triassic and during the Cretaceous. We don't have an extinction during the Jurassic. So you need to remember that only Triassic and Cretaceous were the extinction events. Next is the era Paleozoic, which is the age of invertebrates. This extended from 250 million years till 540 million years and was dominated by early reptiles, amphibians, insects, mollusks, trilobites. Uh, if you are too interested, you can look up the images of mollusks, trilobites, and early insects, but not really important for our purpose. Next is the periods corresponding to Paleozoic include Permian, Carboniferous, Devonian, Silurian, Ordovician, and Cambrian. You don't need to mug up these periods, just refer to the extinction related periods, which are only Permian, Devonian, and Ordovician. You will need to remember the order of the extinction events, that is, which one was older, which one is earlier. That is important. So the first extinction event, the mass extinction which happened, was in Ordovician. Second was in Devonian, third Permian, fourth Triassic, fifth Cretaceous, and the present one in Quaternary. There is no other way to skip this. There is no other way, any shortcut. You will have to mark the mass extinction event and the corresponding periods in their age format. That is, you will need to know that Quaternary is the youngest one and Ordovician is the oldest one. If you can remember the eras as well, that would be absolutely wonderful. Eras as well as the age like age of mammals, age of reptiles. So that would be great. Next is just the earlier eras, Precambrian. Not really important, but it will be a continuation of this table. So it extends from 540 million years till the cooling and solidification of the earth, bacteria, first life, all these happen during this time, and that will be all in this table. We can now talk about the other findings. So, biomass, in terms of biomass, wild animals today account for about 4%, humans account for 36%, and livestock 60%. Can be asked in prelims that animals or wild animals account for the maximum share in biomass category. So that would be wrong. It is livestock which accounts for the maximum share, followed by humans and then wild animals. Next is we also have something known as marine heat waves. Now you must be aware that ocean acidification is happening and the temperatures in the oceans are increasing. So this leads to destruction of shallow water coral reefs, which are the rainforests of the ocean. So it has got spillover effects on the biodiversity, the marine biodiversity. So that is something that is important to remember. Next point is that even if the global warming is capped at 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is actually a very difficult target, but even if it is achieved, we will most likely lose 70 to 90% of the global wildlife. Then about conservation efforts, and this is the silver lining, there has been tremendous success with relation to, say, tigers, manatees, grizzly bears, bluefin tuna, and bald eagles. Very, very important. Now, this is the silver lining which you will need to write in your answers, in your essays. In fact, it can be asked in prelims also. So please pay particular attention to this this specific point. Next is the problems related to humans, including hunting, shrinking of habitat, that is encroachment, pollution, illegal trade, and climate change. These are the anthropogenic activities which have destroyed wildlife. Next is there is something known as great acceleration. Now use this phrase in your mains, in your answers, in your essays. And great acceleration means that there has been an exponential growth in the use of energy, water, timber. You name a particular area and there has been an exponential increase in that, and because of that there has been increasing pressures on the earth's resources, and the earth's regenerative capacity has been exceeded. So the capacity no longer can support the demands of humanity. So this point is related to that. The next point is children under 15 at serious risk from polluted air. This infographic provides certain points which can be used especially in mains. So, the first point is that air pollution affects neurodevelopment, cognition, mental, and motor development in children. It can also damage the lungs of children. Then, the third point is that globally 93% children under 18 are exposed to dangerous PM 2.5 levels. This point is not really important, just mention some figures, you can skip it. The next point, this one is important. The low and middle income countries are the worst sufferers, wherein 98% of all children under 5 are exposed to dangerous PM 2.5 levels. Then lakhs of deaths have happened globally, which can be attributed to air pollution. So you don't need really the figure of 6 lakh, but just say lakhs of deaths have happened. That will suffice. So this part talks about the report on air pollution and child health. All these points we have discussed in the infographic. You can read them again if you like. The next point, which is the sixth one, is important. It says that this report was published on WHO's first ever global conference on air pollution and health. So this is something which is new. Then what makes children more vulnerable? This part is not really important. It is optional. If you want to read, please go through it. Otherwise, you can skip it, except for point 4, which says that it is more dangerous if a family is burning fuels. Burning fuels in the sense that indoor pollution like burning wood, burning kerosene for cooking, etc. Children in such households are exposed to higher levels of pollution. The next topic is Odisha launches disaster alert system for its coast. So, the Odisha government has launched an early warning dissemination system, which is the first of its kind technology in India. This is important. This technology uses siren towers to simultaneously warn coastal communities as well as fisherfolk about impending cyclones and tsunami. Then, about the early warning dissemination system, it is a collaborative effort of central government and state government, and it has received assistance from World Bank. Next point is about the kind of technologies it uses. So please go through this point. It is about satellite based technology, then mobile radio, mass messaging system, universal communication interface, etc. So this point can be asked in your prelims as well. Now, this project is a part of the National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project, and 6 coastal districts of Odisha have been covered under this project. The 6 districts are given here. That will be all in this topic. The next is CSIR develops green crackers and e-crackers. This infographic talks about what green crackers and reduced emission firecrackers are. So, all the points are important. Please go through them. This topic is important mainly for prelims. In mains, you can use it as example under efforts related to combating air pollution. The first point is about less polluting crackers. So these are named as Swas, Safal, and Star, and these have the unique property of releasing water vapor and or air as dust suppressant. Now, last year you must have noticed in the newspapers also on the front pages it had come that the fire department in Delhi had climbed tall buildings and was spraying water to reduce air pollution, make air more breathable. So that concept has been used here, and the first type of less polluting cracker is SWAS. The full form is Safe Water Releaser, and these crackers eliminate use of potassium nitrate and sulfur, and thereby reducing the emission of particulate matter by 30 to 35%. Particulate matter is related to sulfur dioxide and nitrous oxide. The next is about STAR. So STAR eliminates the particulate matter by 35 to 40%. The only difference between SWAS and STAR especially in these 2 points, is about the extent of reduction of emissions in particulate matter. SWAS reduces it by 30 to 35%, while STAR reduces it by 35 to 40%. So STAR is more effective compared to SWAS in terms of reducing emissions from particulate matter. Next is SUFFAL. The full form is Safe Minimal Aluminium. As the name suggests, this firecracker minimizes the use of aluminium and consequently it reduces particulate matter emissions by 35 to 40%, which is similar to STAR, but the difference is in terms of sound intensity. So SUFFAL's sound intensity is 110 to 115 dBA, while the sound intensity of STAR and SWAS was 105 to 110 dBA. So this is the difference. Then PESO is the organization which has been approached to analyze and test these 3 firecrackers. Next is the STAR firecracker. The name is Safe Thermite Cracker, and this is a point which we have already seen about reduction of particulate matter by the extent of 35 to 40%. The next point is e-crackers or electronic crackers. These are under development. The organization developing these is CSIR CIRI, and the full form is electronic crackers. We have already seen this. E-crackers include various products like e-Laddi, e-Anar, etc. These can be programmed to give various kinds of light and sound effects, and these are made using the concept of Tesla coil. Now, you just need to know the name of this concept. You don't need to know the workings or the meaning, because that would become highly technical and it would be out of the scope of this video as well as your syllabus. So just know the name of the concept and that would suffice. The next topic is India's neglected groundwater crisis. This infographic provides important information that can be used in your mains. The first point is that 40% of India's population will have no access to drinking water by 2030. We are already in 2019 almost, and just about 11 years are left, by which 40% population will not have access to drinking water. So this is a ticking time bomb if nothing is done. Then 21 cities, this figure is 21 cities including New Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai and Hyderabad will run out of groundwater by 2020. So just one more year is left, after which these cities are going to run out of groundwater. Then 6% of GDP will be lost by 2050 due to water crisis if business as usual approach continues or status quo is maintained. So shocking figures, shocking data, use it in your answers. That would be great. The next part will be covered in the next slide. So the first thing that we should understand is the gravity of the situation. The next could be a few reports, that is official estimation of the problem. Then we will need to understand the significance of groundwater. Why should we at all be concerned about groundwater? Then why this problem is happening, that is the reasons behind the problem, and lastly the solution. So this would be the entire framework of this topic. Coming to gravity, the points mentioned in the infographic in the last slide are definitely a few of them, and some points we'll get here as well. So let us begin the first heading, which is importance of groundwater. So it accounts for 63% of all irrigation and over 80% of rural and urban domestic water supplies. So very, very important. Then we have two reports. One is by UNESCO and the name is World Water Development Report, and the other is by Niti Aayog, which is Composite Water Management Index. We had studied the CWMI in one of the previous lectures also. Let us begin with UNESCO's report. So it says that India is the largest extractor of groundwater in the world, naturally because India has got the second largest population in the world, so it will be amongst the top extractors of groundwater. And the next is Niti Aayog CWMI report. It states that majority of the states have scored less than 50% in the source augmentation of groundwater resource index. So you need to remember these two reports and include it in your answers regarding groundwater in mains. Then 54% of India's groundwater wells have declined over the past 7 years, and 21 major cities are expected to run out of groundwater. Run out means become totally dry of groundwater by 2020. Very, very important, although it is a reiteration of the infographic material, but still include it in the gravity of the situation issue. Then the next point is India faces a dual challenge. One is to regulate the growing demand. Regulate means to manage the growing demand, to supply the growing demand, to meet the growing demand. And on the other hand, replenish the groundwater, replenish the sources of groundwater. So, this is the dual challenge. Next, we study why this situation is happening. So, reasons behind the groundwater crisis. The first and foremost is subsidies on electricity. Now, these play a central role in the Indian groundwater crisis because majority of the groundwater pumps are unmetered, and whichever are metered, they are billed at a flat, non-volumetric and highly subsidized tariff. This incentivizes inefficient usage and excessive withdrawal of groundwater. So, this is a pretty simple point. The second reason is MSP declaration. The minimum support price is an extremely important variable which determines which crop a farmer would produce, and the government encourages farmers to produce water intensive crops like rice and sugarcane through increased MSPs. So, because these crops require more water, which is often sourced from groundwater, we have the problem of groundwater crisis. Next topic is what possible solutions can be there. So, the first is reducing electricity subsidies. Now, because cheap electricity is one of the biggest causes of the crisis, this would hit the nail on its head, and it is a sort of negative motivation for the farmer. So, because the electricity subsidies would be reduced, it will cost more to produce water intensive crops, it will cost more to extract groundwater. So, inefficient and over extraction of groundwater would be checked to a certain extent. Also, a sort of positive reinforcement can be done that farmers could be compensated for every unit, every electricity unit they save, and this compensation could be given to, could be transferred in their bank accounts. This will greatly accelerate the move towards excessive extraction of groundwater. In fact, this model has been put to test by Government of Punjab in collaboration with a private company. So even this point you can write that Punjab government is testing this model, the efficacy of this model. Then we have the second solution, which is encouraging farmers to adopt micro irrigation techniques. Now, micro irrigation techniques like drip irrigation, micro sprinklers, so these are more efficient irrigation techniques than the conventional ones which the Indian farmers use. And because these are more efficient, that means uh, per drop there is more productivity and less water is required. If less water is required, less extraction of groundwater would be there. So this is the whole link. And the Composite Water Management Index report of Niti Aayog has found that using micro irrigation techniques saves about 20% of groundwater per annum. The next solution, and we can mark it as number three, could be promoting less water intensive crops like banana, grapes, coconut, drought resistant crops like ragi, jawar, bajra, etc. Depending on the agroclimatic conditions, we can have customized incentives for farmers to grow these crops, including increased MSPs, including provision of agricultural extension services, etc. The next, number fourth solution is creating a bottom up approach to conserve groundwater. In fact, bottom-up approach means participatory approach involving the community in managing and conserving anything. So this is a new paradigm in almost anything related to public policy. If we want it to succeed, we want the community to participate in its implementation. Unless it is the community participating, top down approaches, top down bureaucratic approaches are most likely to be very less effective. So what can be done is the local community can be empowered, and it could become an active participant in managing groundwater. In fact, the 12th 5 year plan had proposed a PGM policy. PGM means Participatory Groundwater Management Policy, and it involved training community workers to carry out aquifer mapping and implement innovative ways to use groundwater, etc. So we can follow this as well. The next part talks about way forward. This is not exactly the best heading because way forward means solutions, which we have already discussed. This is actually just a final word. Final word means a quick recap, a consolidation of whatever we have discussed. So these are generic points. You can go through them yourself. Nothing really exam specific. You can write your final words on your own as well. The next topic is assault on Aravali's. This editorial had appeared in the Indian Express, and although it contains many interesting themes from where questions can be asked, especially in mains, the information the editorial contained about those themes is sadly lacking. And I tried to find out the missing parts from standard books as well as over the internet, but nothing much is available. So we'll have to deal with whatever is available in this editorial, and we can begin with why this topic was in news. So Supreme Court has reprimanded means scolded the Rajasthan government for its failure to check illegal mining in the Aravalis. The second point says that Aravali is India's oldest mountain range. Now, this can be asked in prelims, and technically, this mountain range is known as Old Fold Mountain. This is a technical geographical term, and old means the plate boundary is no longer active. It was active at some time in the past when this mountain was formed, but today it is not active. So it is Old Fold Mountain. Fold means it was at converging plate boundaries. It is supposed to be a geosyncline which was like the Himalayas between two converging plates, and this geosyncline was folded up into the Aravalis. Today it is highly denuded, only a fraction of its original might, and it is said that like at its highest point the Aravali was taller than the Himalayas, than the Mount Everest. So it must have been a huge mountain chain in the past, but today, of course, it is highly denuded, and denuded means eroded. The other term for fold mountains is young fold mountains. Now, Himalayas are what is technically known as young fold mountains. Young means the plate boundary is active even today. So, whenever you open the map, even on the internet, if you type young fold mountains and search for the image map, you will find Himalayas and across the Mediterranean and all those things, even the Ring of Fire, the North America and South American areas bounding the Pacific Ocean, those are also young fold mountains. So, young means the tectonic plate is active here today, and fold means the same, converging plate boundaries. So that will be all in this point. The next is Apex Court had referred to a report of the Central Empowered Committee. This is a body which advises the Supreme Court on forest related matters. So this can be asked about this committee CEC, that what it deals with. So it advises the Supreme Court on forest related matters. So the CEC has found that 31 out of 128 hills in the Aravalis, so 31 out of 128 is roughly 25%. So 25% of the hills in the Aravalis have simply vanished. of course, because of illegal mining. So, this is what the Supreme Court has taken note of and has reprimanded the Rajasthan government about. Coming to the next heading, which is impact of the loss of hills. So, the first point is that it could be a reason for rising pollution levels in the NCR. Now, notice the language the author has used. He has used the term could. So, the author himself is not sure whether or at all this is a reason behind rising pollution levels. He is simply speculating it. Uh, Also, he has not given how it is related to rising pollution levels. He has simply stated that it could be one of the reasons behind rising pollution levels in the NCR. The next point, that is the next impact, is drifting of desert sands towards the plains. Now, this naturally leads to extension of the desert, or you can call it as desertification of the Indo-Gangetic plains. Then the third impact of the loss of the Aravallis is an increase in intensity of dust storms in the Indo-Gangetic plains. Now, point 2 and 3 are related because if you can imagine the shape of the Aravallis, it is roughly northeast to southwest. Now, this acts as a hindrance between the western part of the Aravallis, which is Great Indian Desert or Marusthali, and the eastern part of the Aravallis, which is Indo-Gangetic Plains in the north and other plateau region. So this is the Indo-Gangetic Plains, and if we do not have Aravallis, if this is not there, the desert sands can move easily towards the Indo-Gangetic Plains, and also the intensity of dust storms can increase. The next topic is importance of Aravalli. The first point says that Aravalli has played an important role in shaping the terrain of large parts of northwestern India. This they have achieved by moderating the velocity of winds that blow towards North India. Now, you know that wind is an agent of erosion, and the speed and frequency of winds is directly related to the erosive capacity of this agent of erosion. Now, because Aravallis have acted as a barrier, if not the frequency, the speed of the wind definitely has been moderated, and so the erosive capacity. The next point says that the Aravalli has resisted the advance of Thar Desert towards the fertile Indo-Gangetic plain. This point we have already seen in the last slide. This part of point 1 says that Aravallis extend for nearly 700 kilometers from Banaskant in eastern Gujarat to southern Haryana. Now, in some other books, especially in Khullar, you will notice the term Palanpur written. So, Aravallis begin from Palanpur in Gujarat and they extend up till Delhi. Majnu Ka Tila is the northernmost exposed part of the Aravallis near Delhi. After Delhi, the Aravalli has kind of buried under the sediments brought down by the Yamuna, but they continue till Haridwar, and the Delhi Haridwar part is known as Delhi Haridwar Ridge. So, this entire red part is buried under the sediments of the Yamuna. So, that will be all in this topic. The next is what needs to be done. So, what should be done? Supreme Court strictures means warning on mining in Aravalli should be followed in letter and spirit. Generic points these are. Then illegal construction needs to be stopped, and the censure means reprimand only, should apply to Haryana government as well. The next is way forward, and in both these points, there is nothing to explain. Very generic points these are. Please read them yourself. The next topic is India among nations that face grave danger to soil biodiversity. So, this is a finding of the Global Soil Biodiversity Atlas, which is prepared by the Worldwide Fund for Nature. Soil biodiversity means the microbial and animal species which live in soil. So, microbial species would mean bacteria to fungi, and animal species would mean mites, beetles, earthworms, etc. The next point again talks about what soil biodiversity is, And the third point links this biodiversity with a great variety of ecosystem services which soil provides. The next point says that the risk is higher for India because the threats here are more acute. Threats include loss of the above ground diversity, that is, loss of soil biodiversity, pollution and nutrient overloading, overgrazing, intensive agriculture, fire, soil erosion, desertification, and climate change. So, these are the threats which Indian soils face, and next point talks about what soil biodiversity encompasses. So it includes both microorganisms as well as macrofauna. Microorganisms will mean nematodes, tardigrades, etc. Macrofauna includes ants, termites, etc. The findings have also been a part of the Living Planet report of 2018. The next topic is rising ecological footprint in India. The term ecological footprint means the ecological impact of human activities. And point number one talks about global ecological footprint, and it says that compared to 1960, the global ecological footprint has increased by more than 190%. That is, it has become almost two times. The next point says that the two key drivers of biodiversity loss were number one, overexploitation of natural resources, and number two, agriculture. Agriculture basically includes various things like excessive use of fertilizers, intensive agriculture, etc. Point number three says that although India's per capita ecological footprint is low, she remains highly vulnerable because of her high population. This year's report talked about threats not just to soil biodiversity but also to pollinators like bees, and it has concluded that India required around 150 million bee colonies while only 1.2 million are present. Please note 1.2 is less than 1% of 150. So you can imagine how grave the threat is. Point number three, we have already discussed in the previous topic, and it repeats what has been the finding about loss of biodiversity compared between 1970 and 2014. Then point number four is new, and it says that globally, please understand it is globally that it is talking. So globally, wetlands have declined by 87% since 1970, and of course the time period is 1970 till 2014. Next, we talk about summary of the Living Planet report of 2018. I have marked the new points, and the older ones have been ignored. So, say for example, under this head, that is biodiversity in a changing world, point number 1 and 3 are a repetition. Point number 2 is new, and it says that population declines are especially pronounced in the tropics, that is, the tropical regions have suffered maximum population decline, and even in the tropics, South and Central America has lost almost 90% of its biodiversity compared to 1970. Next, it talks about threats and pressures. The first new point is that land degradation seriously impacts 75% of terrestrial ecosystem. The next point is about threats. So, our oceans are getting increasingly threatened from overfishing and plastic pollution, while our freshwater resources are under pressure because of pollution, habitat fragmentation, and destruction. The next point is about the use of new technologies and big data, which are helping us in understanding and measuring the threats and their specific impacts. Next, we talk about way forward, that is the future that we want. The first point is that more research, more extensive research in biodiversity is required. The second point talks about more ambition, that is, more political will is needed. And the third point talks about the realization of CBD 2050 vision. CBD stands for Convention on Biodiversity. Point number four talks about the 2020 to 2050 blueprint for biodiversity, which has been proposed by conservation scientists. And point number 5 talks about various scenarios and indicators which can be helpful in policy making in the field of biodiversity. The next topic is rural India's ignored air pollution problem. This topic is not really important for prelims, but in mains, definitely a dedicated question can appear on the issue of rural air pollution. The first topic says that whatever news coverage is there, whatever reports are available, most of them treat the issue of air pollution as a largely urban problem. So, rural India is majorly ignored and does not receive the attention it deserves. But then WHO's air pollution and child health report contradicts this perception that air pollution is an urban phenomena, and it says that the main sources of air pollution, although they vary from urban to rural areas, no area, that is including rural area, is safer from the problem of toxic air. So you must remember the name of this report and quote it in your answers whenever you talk about rural air problem. The report finds that the issue is much more severe in rural areas because of the total air pollution related deaths in 2015, which were around 1.1 million or 11 lakh, 75% happened in rural area. So this proves that this problem of air pollution is more severe in rural areas. Then key observations made by the report, the first is that the entire North India is under severe threat, and especially in winters. The Indo-Gangetic Plains, which houses nearly one third of India's population, it is blanketed by thick ambient pollution, thick air pollution. Then the report says that of the 600 plus air quality monitoring stations which exist, that is of the CPCB, none of them is in rural areas. All of them are in urban areas. Then the second point is about the finding that children are at greater risk, and we have already discussed it in one of the previous topics in this video only. The next finding is that situation is worsened by indoor pollution. Indoor pollution happens when biomass is burnt for cooking purposes, heating purposes, and this exposes children and women specifically to a grave threat. And the government is taking steps to combat this issue of indoor pollution. In 2003, the CPCB has issued guidelines regarding the issue of indoor air pollution. The next topic is steps taken by government to mitigate the problem of rural air pollution. Point number 1 talks about the draft National Clean Air Program, which has been released earlier this year, with the aim of expanding air quality monitoring network to 50 rural areas, and each of these areas is going to have at least one air quality monitoring station. Now, critics point out that although a start, it is highly inadequate because at least 1200 such stations are needed to get sufficient and accurate picture of rural air quality. Also, they point out that this program doesn't envisage any cooperation between critical ministries like health, transport, and energy. And if these ministries continue to work in silo, if they continue to work independently, it is going to lead to huge inefficiencies and redundancy. The next topic is about policies not delivering, and this is in the context of Pradhan Mantri Ujjwal Yojana. The author says that while it was a right idea, it hasn't yet delivered as expected because LPG costs remain very, very high, and this is a major deterrent in popular adoption of LPG, and therefore biomass fuels continue to be used along LPG. The next topic is what then is the way forward, what should be done. The first point says that it is not always true that with rising incomes, rural households are going to shift from biomass based fuels towards cleaner energy. Such a shift is impacted by various factors, including educated females, family sizes, etc. This means that if the females in a household are educated and if the family size is smaller, the shift from biomass towards cleaner fuels with rising incomes is more likely. Point number three says that the first step in a comprehensive policy framework is collection of data. And point number four says that the draft policy, that is the draft National Clean Air Program, should be put to immediate effect and adequate budgetary provisions should be made for the same.